Okay, so I've gotten a lot of people requesting to know how I built my Qrow sword along with the demonstration video. So I'm actually going to put both of them together and just release this one video since it's easier to do. But, you know, let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. Alright, so I'm going to start with a part list of everything that I used to make this, so that way people have a good idea of what to get if they want to make it this way. You can if you want to. I made it out of wood and PVC, and the sucker is just god-awful heavy. I think it clocks in at 25 or 30 pounds, and it's kind of hard to wield with one hand. But if you choose to do it this way, you can. If not, I mean, you can make the body out of foam if you don't want it to transform. You can still use PVC for the handle, but that's just my choice. Alright, starting at the end here, we'll work our way up to the tip. At the very end, we have a 1 1/4 inch PVC threaded end cap, which is connected to a 1 1/4 PVC threaded coupling. And then the PVC pipes themselves, which range from 1 1/4 inch, 1 inch, and 3/4 inch, which they're all inside of the 1 1/4 inch pipe. The 3/4 inch pipe on the inside is actually fiberglass resin to the ending down here. Like, pretty much from right about there to all the way to the very end here is nothing but fiberglass resin, which holds that pipe in. I think I put about 1 or 2 screws in it just to make sure that it wasn't going to move anywhere inside the resin. Whenever I open it up, you'll get a better look at it. On the inside of the pipe, you can see that little hole there that is actually designed for a kayak spring clip. I'll grab one here for you. These guys right here. They actually fit inside the pipe, and they pop up through that little hole there, and that's what grips pipe to pipe. Moving down. We're going to try to get in here. Yeah, on the inside is just another end cap. It's non-threaded, but it is PVC glued to the actual 1 1/4 inch PVC pipe. And then you can also see a bolt running through it. That bolt runs all the way to the other side of the main housing. The main housing is a 4 inch PVC pipe cap. Alright, next we have... Try to get in there. Come on, camera, focus. It's not focusing. It's all black. But on the inside is a 2.5 inch thick board that actually starts here, goes all the way around. Oop. Starts here, goes all the way around to here, and then cuts across to the center. It's pretty much a half circle on the inside. And it sits roughly about a finger, maybe a little finger here. Depth-wise, from the actual MDF board, and that's what these are. This is MDF board, 2 layers of it to give it more thickness. Just wood glue it together, and then the screws also help to keep it attached. Alright, for the blades here, they are 1/2 inch pine board. You could go with common board. I just happened to find 1/2 inch pine board laying around, so I grabbed that. The long bolt, I'm going to see if I can swing the camera down here. There's a long bolt that runs from the top here all the way underneath. That is a 3/16 bolt with nuts. And then the bolt that actually holds the blade itself on is a 1/4 inch bolt with a nut. And the nuts are actually recessed into the board, so that way whenever the blade actually comes down to this part, it's not gonna get caught up on any remaining bolt. Alright, for the actual gun barrels, I'm not exactly sure what I grabbed. I don't remember the exact name of it, but it is a hardwood, and it's used as railing trim. You can find it over in the railing trim section of Home Depot or Lowe's. It has this nice little round edge to it, and I kind of like that. It was a lot longer. I cut it off, probably cut about 6 inches off of it. Holding the gun barrel onto the MDF board are 2 L brackets with some wood screws running through them. I only ended up using 2 types of wood screws throughout the whole process, 3/4 inch and 1/2 inch. 3/4 inch for anything that was working on the MDF, and 1/2 inch for anything that was working on the main blade. Coming back to the main housing for the gears, they're just simple Lego gears with a whole bunch of different other various Lego pieces attached to it. And a 40mm 5-volt computer fan on this side and then one on the other side to spin the gears. They are connected to a 9-volt battery, which is then run down to the handle here for a momentary push button. So when I push it, see if it'll spin. I've been having troubles with it. Yeah, it's still catching. Gotta fix that. I may just end up scrapping the whole spinning gear portion, or I may just convert it to only one gear is gonna spin. Still like to keep that aesthetic. I mean, I put a lot of time and effort trying to get that 9-volt stick in there and be fine. Alright, coming down to the bottom here. Let me try to get in here. That is a cam bolt. If you've never heard of what a cam bolt is, they're usually designed for when you're putting together like stands of different display stands or computer stands. They have a unique design to them to where they actually screw in from one end, and then on the other end is where a cam would sit. And I'll grab one of those for you here. Alright, so there's the full cam bolt and the cam nut. And what it's designed to do, let's see if I can do this with one hand, is when the bolt comes in, it'll come into the cam like this. Oop, I'm sorry, it'll actually come into the cam like this. And the whole thing will rotate. Sorry for the bad camera angles, but the whole thing rotates, and you can see that it gets locked into place like that. And that's what actually keeps the whole blade from moving up and down and somewhat left and right, but you'll see what I did for the left and right problem I was having issues with. So to fix the left and right problem, I put in 2 M4 bolts, or metric 4 bolts, into the top here. They are designed to take the same Allen wrench that'll take to transform the main blade, which is what I wanted. Basically you just unscrew those and it helps detach this from the gun barrels. The gun barrels will keep it stable from drifting too far left and right. I was having an issue where it was doing that and it seemed like it wanted to tear the whole body apart, so I had to fix that. That's the solution I came up with. So the bolts actually are recessed in there. They go down and they actually attach to a nut inside the main body, and that keeps the whole thing from rocking back and forth so much. It still has a little bit of wobble, but it wasn't as bad as before where I could take this thing and literally crank it almost 90 degrees and tear the whole thing apart. Okay, moving on to the main blade, we got this outer shell, which is an underlayment board, or what they call Luan. It's, I think, don't quote me on it, but I think it's a 1/4 inch just flat board. Very lightweight. The thing that gives it the most heft is for the main piece, which is the blade parts you see here, and then the inner shell, which is a 3/4 inch thick common board. I picked up a 6 foot by 1 foot board just to accommodate the size of the sword. I think the overall length this measures is about 9.5 to 10 inches wide. All the underlayment is attached to the common board by just 1/2 inch wood screws. Nothing fancy about that. And then for the top here is also just a piece of common board, whatever scrap was left over. Moving around the table for a better view. Right here, you can see there are 1/2 inch hinges, just regular cabinet hinges that I put on there, and that allows this whole piece here to swivel. And it'll want to keep swiveling, but it won't go too far because on the other end down here, the board will actually catch right here, and it'll stop it. I'll take apart this when I'm doing the demonstration for transforming it, so that way you can actually see what goes on the inside. It's kind of hard to explain what happens, but it's better off just to show it. And on the body, you probably notice these little holes everywhere. There's 2 there, or 4 there, 2 there, and then 2 down there. And what those house are these. They are 1/4 inch wood anchors. I think they go by a different name. I just call them wood anchors. And then they have a recessed 1/4 inch bolt that runs through them. And so what that does is this whole anchor sits inside the 3/4 inch board, and this bolt can go up and down to release the whole thing. I'll flip the main body over here and show you that on the bottom there are bigger holes for which that bolt can push down through, and actually grips on the outside underlayment, which prevents this whole piece from actually moving back and forth. So if it goes into sword mode, it stays in sword mode. It goes into scythe mode, it stays in scythe mode. Alright, and the only other thing to cover for parts list would just be spray paint. I chose just normal red, normal black, and like an aluminum kind of paint for the blade itself. Kind of gives it a nice shine and makes it almost look more metallic than it would be just a piece of board. And then for the treble designs, right now they're just pencil graphite. I literally just took a pencil and hand stenciled everything on there from a design. I think in the future I'm going to wood burn it, but I don't want to take that risk right now, because the moment I start wood burning it and something goes wrong, then I'm out of the outer shell and I have to make a new outer shell, which wouldn't be that hard, but it does kind of deter, because when I ran the router down through it, it did put that nice little edge. Come on, focus. There you go. Put a nice little edge on it, and I'd lose that edge if I had to replace the underlayment. So that about covers everything for the parts and putting it all together. So now we'll move on to the actual transformation of things. And we'll start off with probably the simplest one, going into compact mode. So to take it into compact mode, basically there are 2 of those inserted nuts inside these 2 top holes, and they'll just be raised up enough to where the whole front end of this piece will slide off. When I was originally planning this, I did want it to actually fold in to this part, but realistically it just wouldn't be, it would be possible, but it just looks stupid. It would almost be kind of like the toy lightsabers, where they kind of have to fold in, and as it comes out it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, like those little Russian dolls. And that'd be the case for the end part of this blade, and it just wouldn't look the same if it was going down half inch, and by this point here you only have a little tiny sliver of a piece. So I opted to just have it so this front part can just detach from the actual main body, and that way you get the compact mode. So we insert like this, give it a couple good turns. It's all just guesswork, because I don't know how many turns it actually takes. One of these days I'll actually count it. Just enough to get it to come off from the bottom there. And the whole thing slides right out. And there you're left with compact mode, where it actually can sit on his back and look cool just sitting there. Alright, so we'll reattach this, and then we'll go into gun mode next. Alright, so what gun mode entails is actually going up to here, taking the bolt from this and the other one, and just loosening it enough so the whole thing can come free. Slightly turning the main body here, so I get access to the actual cam nut and bolt that are right here, and then it just transfers down to underneath here. This blade right here can actually rotate up, and that'll give me access to tighten it, push it back down, and then the whole thing is good from there. Let me see if I can't get my camera on a tripod here so I can just do it in a little time lapse. if you couldn't tell by that, I'm still kind of having a learning curve with this thing as I learn how to transform it better and better. I did learn that this is kind of rubbing this a little too rough. I might have to loosen up this bolt here so that way it can swing more freely. But the nice thing is I don't have to worry about these gripping it from the side to the blade. It's actually these little blades now that are gripping it that prevent it from shifting left and right too much and trying to break the housing. So yeah, that's just gun mode. Basically the blade comes down and everything else on the main body stays the way it is. So now we'll move on to the next one, Scythe mode. Alright, and there she is in Scythe mode. You probably see my struggles when I was going through and transforming. Like I said, it's a learning curve. I mean, I just finished this thing, quote-unquote finished it, just the other day. There are some still minor things I need to do, like adjust those bolts that were giving me trouble on the gun head, and adjust those screws that were giving me trouble on the small blade portion, and adjust those things that are down there. Yeah. It's a learning process. One other thing I forgot to mention when I was going through the build thing, I'm going to try to zoom in here as much as I can. It's all black, it's hard to tell, but you can see there's a gap there. Let's see if I can get it to pop up here. Probably not. But anyway, where that gap is, there is a screw that is actually part of the main housing here. And it just pokes up maybe 1/4 of an inch. And on the MDF board itself, I actually grooved a track that runs all the way along. I think, well, since it's in Scythe mode, it runs from here, and it should loop all the way down to here. And that allows this whole housing to actually turn, but then actually stay in place whenever it turns back and forth. So it doesn't pop off the track. And that's what keeps the whole thing actually attached to the main housing, which is that 4-inch PVC pipe. And then I said earlier I was going to show you at the very end here, inside, this is the 3/4 inch PVC pipe. It did have to be sanded down to basically a 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch will fit inside a 1 inch, but it's too loose. 3/4 inch doesn't quite fit in there, so you have to sand it down to basically between 3/4 inch and a 1/2 inch. So 5/8 about roughly is the size you actually need to get 3/4 inch to fit into a 1 inch pipe. But the 3/4 inch pipe runs in, goes to about here, and then all the way up to about here is all that fiberglass resin. And like I said, I think I put 1 or 2 screws, or at least drilled some holes, so that way it gives it a nice grip and the whole thing won't fall off. So this is the piece that actually slides up, covers up this goes into here, and then fits snugly right on the end here. And there you can see the kayak clips, how they protrude out a little bit. And this one's easy to get with the thumb, the other one's not. But you click those in, and then the whole thing slides back in inside the main handle. And here I'll take a piece off of the main body here so you can actually see what's going on inside one of the pieces of the Scythe. Alright, so this is the inside of one of the Scythe pieces, and here you can see actually what's going on inside this thing. This one doesn't have it in particular. This is the one that detaches from the main body, but right here is where one of those hinges would be. The hinge attaches to this board and then this board here, and that gives it the rotation it needs. Here you can actually see the wood anchors that I was talking about with the inset screws inside of them. That's what they look like underneath, but on the outside you can have a much smaller hole. You just need a hole big enough for the Allen wrench itself to fit into and turn, so that way it's not a big eyesore. You don't see the big massive hole. The blade itself you can actually see is detached from the main body, so that way it can rotate up and give it that illusion that this piece is still here, and then it shifts back. And like I said, you can see whenever it does swing down with the hinge, it catches right here, and that prevents it from moving out any further. With this one being the exception, since it could be taken out, it needs 2 of the inset screws to keep it in place. And when you notice when I was transforming it, you probably saw it has a little bit of wobble. That's because it actually popped right out. That's because it popped out because this piece isn't here anymore, so this whole thing is just gone. But basically, this one needs 2, and the only reason why the second one wasn't in is because the hole on the opposite side isn't quite wide enough, so it's not gripping. Instead, it's trying to tear the wood. So I just got to take my Dremel to that and give it a little bit more of an opening for that inset screw to come through. So that is the Qrow Scythe. I believe I covered everything. If I didn't cover everything, leave a comment below. I'll respond to you. I usually respond within 24 hours on my videos. So yeah, if you feel like I didn't cover anything, or I didn't explain something enough, or if you have a suggestion to try and fix anything, just leave me a comment. Also, like and subscribe. Get old stretches and yawns out. A PVC threaded, still 1 1/4. Lost where I'm at here. 2 4M bolts, or 4M. M stands for. And what that's designed to do is. Hang on. And what that's designed to do is blank. So that about a, damn it. So that about a